Hello guys, David here with Btekt. I feel like I've had the P30 Pro long enough now to give you a full and unbiased opinion of the camera system. Is it really the best camera in the world? Well, yes and no. It's amazing in some areas, but there is a couple of things that do let it down. But before we get into it, I want to say a big thank you to Direct Mobiles. Over 24 years of award-winning customer service and a great selection of phones to choose from. Check down in the video description below for a link or search directmobiles.co.uk. Okay, so this time I promise no specs in this video at all. Alright, I mean I've done specs about the P30 and the P30 Pro, so if you want to know the technical details, then click the tab above or you'll find plenty of links in the description below. Now this time I'm going to tell you my favourite things about the camera and a few quirks that I found. I've said it before that the P30 and the P30 Pro is more of a choice than a compromise, and with the camera system it is kind of the same thing. It's a choice between whether you want a 5x zoom or a 3x zoom. And of course that time of flight sensor is absent from the P30, but the P30's software is very capable at giving you very nice portrait shots. In fact, I think that the P30's camera I find a little bit more useful with that 3x zoom than the P30 Pro is with its 5x zoom. Other than that, there are a few minor software changes that they've added to try to further separate the two. Things like the P30 is only capable of a mere 204,600 maximum ISO, which is half of the P30 Pro, but other than that, really they're pretty much the same. When using the zoom lens on both of the phones, you do have to be a little bit patient for the camera to achieve focus. It does seem to do it in two stages. First of all, it will grab focus, but then it will clear up the image further and then give you a really nice looking shot. But sometimes I've noticed that depending on what you're looking at, it won't achieve that second stage of clarity. I feel that at high magnification, the AI can get a little bit confused as to what it's looking at, and therefore what adjustments it needs to make to the image and gets kind of stuck. It's only really in fairly extreme zoom situations that I've noticed it do this, but when shooting at the longer focal lengths, it is a good idea to be just a little bit patient. I've been most impressed with the P30 Pro's time of flight sensor because the portrait shots are just fantastic. They seem to be improved over the portrait shots that you get from the Honor View 20. The AI is very good at recognizing if you might want to use portrait mode and then switching automatically. And unlike most portrait systems that use dual lenses, I've not seen it make any errors at all. So things like what you see here, which I've taken with the P30 Lite, are totally non-existent with the P30 Pro. Huawei are calling it Super Portrait, and it's even capable of separating individual strands of hair because the sensor has total and accurate depth information of the scene, so it's very hard for it to mess up. This really shows when you use portrait mode effects. Previous Huawei devices using these effects would just make it look like bad Photoshop because they could never perfectly isolate the subject and remove the background. But now I love using these effects and I wish they'd included a few more. These ones are getting a little bit old now. The night mode apparently has been improved, but I'll be honest, it's hard to say where. I think that the AI stabilization is much better at keeping it steady, and it is a little bit quicker at recognizing if it needs to switch to its night mode, which is a good thing and a bad thing I think. Because if you're not expecting it to take a long exposure 4-second, 5-second shot, you just want to snap it and go, it can be a little bit annoying. But having said that, it delivers amazing shots, almost every time. It's incredible what this camera can do in low light. Speaking of which, the Super Spectrum sensor performs amazingly well, especially for such a small sensor. Imagine when they get this type of technology on full frame sensors. Apparently, Leica have hinted towards a full frame camera using this technology, which is great, but for most people, Leica cameras are pretty unaffordable. Buying a Huawei smartphone is probably the cheapest way to get any kind of Leica hardware in your pocket. But this sensor performs amazingly well in low light, and you can see the difference by just switching to the other lenses. If you stick to this lens, then in most nighttime situations you won't have to use the night mode. It's a shame that all three sensors are not using the same technology. One thing I've noticed about the ultra wide angle sensor is that it can produce shots with heavy vignetting. When you first switch to the ultra wide angle lens, you'll notice through the viewfinder you'll have very dark corners. Within a few seconds the software brightens up those corners, but if you're quick you can get a shot with the vignette, and I think it looks pretty good sometimes. The video has been much improved on the P30 Pro from any other Huawei device that I've used. It does still have its issues, but it does have stabilized 4K video, although you might want to just shoot in 1080p. The stabilization in 1080p is much superior to the stabilization when you're shooting at 4K. It's so good it just looks like all your footage is shot on a gimbal. I definitely prefer shooting video at 1080 60 frames per second. And I think it's a very useful device for shooting video, and that's mainly because of its versatility, because you have 3 very different focal lengths that you can shoot at. Plus you can also shoot in a 21:9 aspect ratio to give your videos that cinematic effect. The only thing that lets it down is the video in low light. You do get a bit of a jelly effect when the lights get low. It's not quite as bad on this device as it was on the Mate 20 Pro, but it is definitely still there. If you're shooting in low light and you keep the camera still, put it on a tripod, then you won't get this effect. It seems to be something to do with the stabilizer. Trouble is, there's no way of turning the stabilizer off. But that's really my only criticism for video. Other than that, the video is actually really good, and I love that you can go from a sweeping wide angle shot right up to a 125mm telephoto shot. In my opinion, makes it possibly one of the best phones for making video at the moment. Overall, I think this camera's got all the bases covered. It's got something for everyone. For somebody who's not really too interested in photography, but wants a good high quality camera to take pictures of, say, their kids for example, this is the phone to get. Or if you're a professional photographer and you want something to slip in your pocket to get usable shots on the fly, then this is the phone to have. The thing that I really liked about the Mate 20 Pro's camera was that ultra wide angle lens. But here, there's much more to like. I love the portrait shots thanks to the 3D time of flight sensor. Obviously there's the ultra wide angle shots, and the 5x telephoto shots are also great. My only criticism, or more of a wish really, is that I wish it simulated the bokeh effects that you get from the telephoto shots. For example, shooting at the 5x optical zoom is the equivalent at shooting at 125mm. But if you was shooting at 125 with a full frame camera, then pretty much anything that you focus on would be isolated from its background and you would get that bokeh effect. When shooting at the long focal lengths on such a small sensor, you don't get the same bokeh effects. So I just wish that they would simulate it. But anyway, that's just my little 2 pence worth. Overall, it's a fantastic camera and is recommended to pretty much everyone, as long as you don't mind taking a little hit in resolution and sound quality. See my other videos on the P30 Pro for more. Anyway, that's it from me. Thanks for watching my camera review of the Huawei P30 Pro. If you enjoyed this video, please hit subscribe, double tap the notifications and smash the like button. Got lots more reviews and comparisons on the way, so make sure you're subbed so you don't miss out. Thanks for watching, my name's David, and this is Btekt.